Hello and welcome everyone to the Golbez Extreme Guide. Clearing this fight will give you a really good weapon for the upcoming Savage tier, so here's a quick guide to help you clear this as soon as possible. The first spell Golbez casts is Terror Storm, lifting two huge rocks and slamming them into opposite intercardinal corners, leaving the other two intercardinals safe. At the same time, he will cast Lingering Spark, which will leave a delayed AoE under your position once the cast ends. So everybody stack up and move clockwise once the cast ended. Phases of the Blade is a frontal cleave into a rear cleave that will be casted a lot during this fight. Always start on his back and move into the front cleave after he cleaved. The Binding Cold of I cannot do that. The Binding Cold is the AoE of this encounter, leaving a dot on the players. Make sure to heal and mitigate this properly. Gale Sphere will create 4 doppelgangers on the edge of the arena, always north or south first, then east or west. Stay in the safe lanes while dodging the ice cubes shooting forward. These icicles will appear later on again, so get used to them. Here we have south first, then north, then west, then east. If you remember the order, you can just dodge by simply looking at the green orbs and standing in the safe lane. So we're on C first, looking at the icicles moving to the A safe spot. All the way up. And then all the way down again. After this minigame, Phases of the Blade, so frontal into rear and another bleeding AoE. Now the boss will cast a heavy-hitting Raid White, Black Fang, to initiate P2 of the encounter, so keep your mitigations up and be ready to heal. Here the boss will cast Dais Shadow, which will enchant the blade. While the cast is going on, the dragon is either gonna take small turns or huge turns around the boss, indicating either a donut AoE later on the big turns, or a point-blank AoE out mechanic on the small turns. This donut or the AoE will not be released immediately. It will be released after the next Phases of the Blade cast, so remember what was casted before. Once the blade is enchanted, indicated by this little debuff on his health bar, the auto attacks on the tank will cleave in a frontal line and put stacks on the tanks. If you receive 3 stacks, you will die immediately, even through invuln, so make sure to tank swap after 2 autos. Now he casts Phases of the Shadow into either in or out, depending on the dragon's animation beforehand. Out will always be followed by light party stacks on healers. And in will always be followed by a group spread. He will always cast the opposite of what he did before later on, so be ready for both. Double Meteor might be the most confusing and visually overwhelming part of the encounter, and it can easily wipe you, but if we break it down into pieces, it's not that hard. There will be a knockback going off of one healer, always on a healer, one other support role that can be the other healer or a tank, and a DPS will get marked with flare AoEs. 2 enumeration towers will spawn in opposite corners, always having at least one 3-man tower and one 2-man tower. So by standing in the middle, the knockback healer will knock back the flares into the non-tower corners. He will knock back the DPS in the 3-man tower and the supports in the 2-man tower. This cannot be anti-knockbacked. After the knockback, the healer in the middle will get targeted with a beam that he will point towards C, while the others wait in their corners for a second. Here's what it would look like in real time. Healer with knockback in the middle. The DPS will always take the 3-man tower, supports will always take the 2-man tower, and the flares go left and right into the other corners. The boss will cast another Dais Shadow, this time the opposite of what he did before, and cleaving tank autos will start again, forcing a tank swap. The next mechanic is called Void Stardust, and it's an Exaflare type mechanic that has to be resolved with a partner. We paired Healer 1 with Ranged 1, Main Tank with M1, H2 with R2, and the off tank with a second melee. We split up into East and West light parties and find the first impact, stand next to it and dodge into the first explosion. Ranged stay where the first explosion was and melees chase it back to the boss and stack there. Shortly after, there's either a Eventide Fall, which is a light party stack on healers that we take East and West, or a role-based cleave, called Evencast Triad, cleaving a random healer, a random DPS, and a random tank. We always keep healers on D and B, And in case it's a healer stack, we have the party move onto them. And in case it's a role-based cleave, we have healers stay on D and B, all DPS on C, and tanks on A towards north to resolve it. He will cast the opposite later on, so again be prepared to do both. Void Meteor is a multi-hitting tank buster, with the hardest hitting one being the last one, so tanks time your defenses properly and you'll be fine. Now he will use Phases of the Shadow, releasing the previously stored mechanic, which at this point is a long ass time ago, and will cast its corresponding follow-up. In our case it was Donut In, which is always followed up by a Clock Spread. So go behind the boss, wait, walk into the cleave, wait in, then move out to spread. Now the boss will cast another Terror Storm like in the beginning, only this time there's only one safe spot because the other safe spot will be killed by the ice spikes. At the same time, you will do Light Party stacks on healers, putting Light Party 2 in the back and Light Party 1 in the front. And at this point, you will have seen all the mechanics of the fight. The boss will just do different variations of them and some mechanics at the same time, just like now with the Terror Storm. You will notice that by how much I will say another and again from now on. Another AoE bleed, another Gale Sphere, this time with an extra mechanic in the beginning and at the end. Here we have Light Party stacks, group 2 against the wall, do the dodges including ice, and then a partner stack in the end. Partner stacks and Light Party stacks can also be the other way around. He will do it again later and it will be opposite. Shortly after, Phases of the Blade again. Frontal into rear cleave, another bleeding AoE, another storing Dragon Shadow, another tank cleave autos, another Void Stardust, spot the first AoE and dodge into it. This time, during the stack, there will be a lingering spark though, so don't move until the cast ends and then dodge clockwise. Here, he will cast Even Cast Triad, or whatever he didn't do before, cleaving either both healers, or a healer, a DPS, and a tank. Now Phases of the Shadow will release the stored mechanic just like before. The exact same meteor mechanic again. Void Meteor Buster again, another Gale Clone set, and Phases of the Blade. The boss will keep recycling here until he enrages. I hope this was helpful to at least some of you, and I would appreciate if you subscribe to my channel to support me for absolutely free. Also, that way you will not miss out on the Savage Guides that I will release next week after the race, or you can catch us prog the new tier live if you want to take a more chill approach. Thank you so much for watching and have fun raiding.